The night was cold, and the wind rattled against the thin windows of the small, dimly lit apartment. In the center of the room, on a threadbare carpet that had seen better days, a man lay on the floor with two tiny infants tucked against his chest. His arms cradled them protectively, his body acting as a shield from the chill. He hadn't slept in days, and yet his eyes never strayed far from the babies. He was a soldier turned father, alone, exhausted, and determined. His name was Daniel Hayes, a decorated war veteran who had traded the battlefield for diapers, bottles, and endless cries. Daniel had once been strong, confident, and fearless. But now, his strength was tested in ways the military had never prepared him for. His wife, Emily, had passed away during childbirth, leaving him to raise their twin daughters alone. He had Northwest family close by, no one to call for help, and the government pension barely covered the rent. The crib he wanted for his daughters was still a dream. Instead, he slept on the floor with them every night because the bed was too small to keep them safe. The neighbors often whispered about him, how the poor veteran was barely surviving, how his girls deserved better. But what they didn't know was that Daniel gave every ounce of love he had left to those little girls. Every smile from them gave him strength. Every soft grip of their tiny fingers reminded him why he kept going, even when his own body cried for rest. One particularly hard night, Daniel had returned from working double shifts at a security job. He barely made enough to buy formula. His eyes stung with tears as he mixed powdered milk into a bottle, his hands trembling from fatigue. He whispered softly to his daughters, "Daddy's here. Daddy won't let you go hungry." He lay back down on the floor with them, and despite the ache in his bones, he hummed the lullaby his late wife used to sing. What Daniel didn't know was that his life was about to change forever. Across town, a man named Richard Lawson was living a completely different life. He was a millionaire businessman, known for his empire of luxury hotels. But despite his wealth, Richard carried a burden of his own. Years earlier, he had lost his wife in a tragic car accident, and he had never been blessed with children. His mansion was full of silence, echoing with loneliness. He often wondered what it might have felt like to be a father, to have a little voice call him Dad. One evening, fate brought Richard to the old neighborhood where Daniel lived. His company had recently purchased a property nearby, and he wanted to see it for himself. As his sleek black car drove down the narrow streets, he spotted something unusual, the light inside Daniel's apartment flickering through a cracked curtain. Normally, he would have ignored it, but something urged him to stop. Richard stepped out of his car and walked closer. Through the window, he caught sight of the scene inside, and froze. There was Daniel, lying on the hard floor, his arms wrapped around two tiny babies. The man's clothes were worn, his face weary, but his grip on those children was unbreakable. Richard's throat tightened. He had seen many things in his life, lavish banquets, deals worth millions, but he had never seen a picture of such raw, pure love. He knocked gently on the door. Daniel stirred, alarmed. He pulled himself up, careful not to wake the twins, and opened the door slightly. His eyes narrowed with suspicion. "Can I help you?" he asked, his voice hoarse. Richard cleared his throat. I was just passing by. I saw the light and, forgive me, but I noticed." He hesitated, then looked at the babies. "Are you okay?" Daniel gave a tired smile. "We're fine. Just making it through." Something in the veteran's tone told Richard that making it through meant surviving on the edge. Without asking, Richard stepped inside, his eyes scanning the bare room. The cracked walls, the empty shelves, the single mattress in the corner. His chest ached. "Where's their mother?" Richard asked softly. Daniel's eyes dropped. "She passed. It's just me now." The room fell silent. Richard swallowed hard, his heart breaking. He thought of his own wife, gone too soon, and the life he never had with children. His eyes landed back on Daniel, who was now gently patting one twin's back as she stirred. The man may have been poor, but the devotion he showed was richer than anything Richard had ever witnessed. That night, Richard couldn't sleep. The image of Daniel and the babies haunted him. The next morning, he returned. And the next. Soon, he began bringing food, clothes, and supplies. At first, Daniel resisted. "I don't take charity," he said firmly. Richard nodded. Then don't see it as charity. See it as one father helping another. Slowly, Daniel allowed him in. Richard bought a crib, then a stroller, then even helped fix the leaky faucet in the kitchen. The twins began recognizing his face, giggling whenever he appeared. For the first time in years, Richard felt his heart healing. He wasn't just a wealthy man anymore, he was becoming part of a family he never thought he'd have. But Daniel still faced challenges. His job barely paid enough, and every day he feared what would happen if he fell sick or lost work. One evening, Richard asked him, "Daniel, what do you want for your daughter's future?" Daniel's eyes watered as he whispered, "I just want them to have more than I can give. I want them to grow up safe, happy, loved." Richard leaned forward. "Then let me help you build that future. I don't want to replace you. I just want to stand beside you." With Richard's support, Daniel was able to go back to school and earn a degree in criminal justice. Soon after, he got a stable job with the city, ensuring his daughters would never go without again. Meanwhile, Richard found himself becoming the twins' Uncle Richard, a role he cherished with all his heart. He attended birthdays, read bedtime stories, and even babysat when Daniel had night shifts. Years later, those little girls grew into bright, confident young women, carrying the love of two fathers who had given everything for them. At their high school graduation, Daniel looked at Richard and whispered, "I could never repay you for what you've done." Richard shook his head, smiling through tears. "You already have. You gave me a family." And so, from a cold night on the floor to a future filled with hope, love, and unbreakable bonds, the story of a struggling single dad and a lonely millionaire became a testament that